Hey everyone, and welcome to the next lesson in this series on AWS fundamentals. So today I'm going to teach you as to how you can go ahead and create your own database. So first of all, you want to head over to Amazon RDS. So to find it, you must just type in RDS, and you can go ahead and click on it to open this page that you see here. So I'm also going to bookmark this. Okay, so here it is. So make sure you click on RDS and you'll be greeted with this page. Now once you're on this page, you can go to DB instances. Okay, and you can say create database. Okay, now this will just take a few seconds. Okay, there we go. So now we can choose how we want to create our database. So we can either use standard create or easy create. So let's go ahead and choose standard create. We don't want to skip any steps. Now you need to set an engine option. Now, as you can see here, we have a few options. We have Amazon Aurora, which is a proprietary database from AWS. Very expensive, but it has higher performance levels. Then we have MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, Oracle, and Microsoft SQL Server. So I would suggest that you use a Postgres engine, okay, or MySQL. So we can just choose this one here. Now, according to the version, you can choose whichever version you want. I always go for the Postgres 13.4 R1. So you can choose. Okay, so now we are coming to the template. So we can choose our template. First, we have production, we have dev test, and then we have free tier. So we don't want to go into extravagant detail here. So let's go and keep it simple with the free tier. So go ahead and just check that option. Okay, so availability and durability will be grayed out since we're utilizing free tier, so some options will be prohibited. Okay, under settings, the first thing you want to state here is your database identifier name. Now this will be shown in AWS, so this is what your database would be called in AWS. So you're more than welcome to change that if you'd like. Okay, now you are under the credentials settings header. So now you need to choose your username. So this will be the login ID for the master user of our database. So it's by default set to Postgres, but you can go ahead and change this as you'd like. So I'm just going to leave it as Postgres. Now we can go ahead and actually set a master password and confirm the password. So here I'm just going to add something random. Okay, so just set your username and then set your password. Okay, so here we come to the instance configuration. So you want to leave it as the default, which is db.t3.micro. So you can, of course, get different instances for your database as well as your EC2 instance. So you get something called database instances. Now, if we click on this drop down, we can see there are different types here. Okay, the bigger ones, of course, going up to 8 vPCBU with a 32 gig RAM, but trust me, it does cost a lot. So we can see the different types that we have here. Okay, but we can leave that for now. So we can scroll down here and make sure that you're on the DBT3 micro instance, very important. Now if we go back up, also just ensure you're on the free tier, very important as well. Okay, so sorry, let's carry on. Okay, under storage, we can leave this as is. Okay, so we can see here what the storage type will be by default. It will be based on our SSD. Allocated storage, the minimum is 20 gig. And we also are enabling here storage auto-scaling. So basically what happens once our storage, our maximum storage limit is about to be reached, our database is going to enable storage auto-scaling. So it's going to increase the storage once this threshold has been exceeded. And we also have a maximum storage threshold that you can also define here. Okay, now we can scroll down under connectivity. So we can decide how we want to actually connect to our database. Okay, so the first thing we need to decide is based on compute resource. So if we want to connect to an EC2 compute resource or if we don't, I usually just say don't. Under network type, we need to define if we're going to utilize IPv4 networking or dual stack, which is IPv4 and 6. Best to just keep IPv4. Okay, we're going to be in the default virtual cloud. You can leave that. The default subnet, this is fine. And this is important. So if you want to connect to your database with an application, let's say you have a Django application, Ruby on Rails application or whatever, let's say you want to connect with it through an endpoint, you would need to say yes here. And what will happen is once the database has been created, it will have an endpoint which you can connect with to your application. Okay, so we have a security group here, so you can create one if you'd like, but it's best to just leave the security group as a default, okay? Now, generally, depending on your application, you will have to modify the security group that it gets created to allow all inbound traffic from IPv4 and IPv6 addresses, so do bear that in mind. Okay, on the availability zone, we can leave it a no preference. Additional configuration, so just bear in mind your database port for this database instance will be on port 5432. Database authentication, we can just leave it at password authentication, but you do have other options. You can utilize IAM as well, or you can also use Kerberos authentication. Okay, so this is just a bit about monitoring, so you don't need to look into detail here. It's just a little bit about monitoring, and you can enable enhanced monitoring if you want greater detail into your stats and metrics. Okay, additional configuration, you can click on this tab, it's important. So this is where you're going to name your database. So here I usually just say demo1, so this is the name of your database. Very important if you're configuring your database with the application to name it here. Everything else here we can leave as default. So there's just a little bit about maintenance, the window when you can do maintenance, a bit about deletion protection, so that basically you can enable deletion protection. So this is a good option if you don't want anyone to accidentally delete your database. Okay, so we can scroll up, this is fine. Okay, so here we see the estimated monthly cost. So since we are using the free tier, which is available for 12 months, we're not going to be charged. This is how much we have available for our RDS instance to be running, how much storage and backup storage that we have. Okay, so just bear in mind this is the amount of hours that you will have. And we have 12 months, okay, and each calendar month we're going to have that many hours to run our RDS instance. But you can read more on this RDS pricing page just to have an idea of what happens if you go over this free tier limit. Okay, so that's all set. So make sure that you set everything up as it should have been earlier on. And once you're happy with that, you can create your database. Okay, so let's just say create. Okay, and it's creating. Now this is going to take some time, okay, to create. So the status should show available or running, I believe. And once it's done, this usually can take up to 15, maybe even 20 minutes. Okay, once it's done, I'm just going to show you a little bit more about that endpoint that I mentioned earlier on, if you want to connect your application to it. So do bear that in mind. So let's just wait for this to run, and I'm going to pause the video, and then we're going to return to our database, and then we can go a little bit more in detail with it. All right. Hi everyone, and welcome back. So you'll now see that your database has been created. So if you just scroll across here, you'll now see the status is available, and you will usually see a message that comes up top here saying your database, followed by your database identifier name here, has been created. Okay, so let's go a bit further. So make sure you click on your database here. Okay, scroll down here under the connectivity and security heading. And you'll see here that our endpoint was generated for our database. Now this endpoint is very important. This is technically our host name, which we will attach to our application. So we'll add this to our application code, which is going to link to this database. Okay. Now another important thing to bear in mind is you need to set your inbound rules for your security group. Now I believe a lot of people forget to do this, so make sure you open this up. Okay, so I'm going to open this in a new tab, and I'm going to explain it to you. So let's open this. And you want to click on your security group here. So you can open it by clicking on the security group ID here. Okay, and what you want to do is scroll down, and you want to set two more inbound rules. So we can say edit inbound rules. And we get the default here, which is not that effective. What we want to do is create two new inbound rules, okay? So basically by allowing this, okay, we will be able to connect to this database instance from our web application. Okay, we'll be able to connect to our database from our web application. Now we need to add a rule here that is set to all traffic, okay? And we need to set this here, the custom, to all IPv4 addresses. Then we need to add another rule and set it to all traffic, and this will be set to all IPv6 addresses. Okay, so this is very important because you won't be able in Siri to be able to connect to your database if you do not have this in place, because a lot of traffic is going to be based on IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. So make sure that you set these, and save your rules. Okay, very important that you do that. Okay, great. So we can go back to our database and we can just look a little bit further here. We can see the role for our database. It's an database instance. The engine is based on a Postgres engine. This can also be MySQL or MariaDB, depending on what you chose for your engine type. The region is in US East 2, 2C. So we can see here we're in Ohio. That's where we created this database. The size is DB-T3 micro. That's our instance type. We can see it's available, and we can see a few metrics here, such as the CPU utilization and the current activity based on sessions. We can also see the maintenance and the VPC. We're in the default VPC, and we can see that this database is not based on multi-AZ, which means multi-availability zone. Okay. So that's it for databases. So I just wanted to show you the basics of how to create one, and just to get you familiarized with RDS. So RDS is used for relational databases. So whenever you're working on a project and you need to make use of a relational database and you want to use cloud computing, then RDS is the service for you. Okay, so be sure to use this service if you want to make use of a database that's in the cloud and one that is relational. Okay, so that's it. Just a short introduction there for you. So I hope that helped, and thank you again.